At the edge of a vast forest where pine trees stood like silent guardians, there lived a woodsman named Elias. His cabin was small, built by his own hands, with smoke curling from its chimney only in winter and the smell of cut wood clinging permanently to its walls. Elias had chosen solitude years ago, not because he hated people, but because life had taken from him everything that made noise, laughter, arguments, footsteps that weren't his own. The forest understood his silence, and in return, he gave it his labor and respect. One late autumn evening, as the sky bruised into shades of gray and purple, Elias heard a sound that did not belong to the woods. It was faint at first, almost swallowed by the wind, but unmistakably human. A child's cough. He followed the sound beyond the narrow trail near his cabin and found a woman standing beside a broken cart, her shawl pulled tight around her shoulders. 3 children huddled close to her, thin, tired, and frightened. The youngest clutched her skirt as if letting go might make the world disappear. The woman introduced herself as Mara. Her husband had died the previous winter, and what little land they had once farmed had been claimed by debts she could not pay. She had been traveling toward a distant town where someone had promised work, but the wheel of her cart had split, and the horse had fled into the forest hours ago. Night was coming fast, and the cold was already creeping into the children's bones. Elias said little. He studied the broken wheel, the children's hollow eyes, and the way Mara stood, straight back despite exhaustion, pride fighting desperation. Without asking permission, he lifted the youngest child into his arms and told them to follow him. The cabin was warm, the fire already burning low from the afternoon. He gave them bread, soup, and blankets made from old wool. He slept that night on the floor while they shared his bed, listening to the sounds of breathing he hadn't heard in years. They stayed one night, then another. Elias repaired the cart, but when he brought it around, Mara hesitated. The children had color in their cheeks again, and for the first time since he'd found them, she allowed herself to sit without constantly watching the door. Elias told her she could stay until winter passed. He said it as if it were nothing, but the words cost him more courage than facing a storm. Days turned into weeks. The children learned the paths of the forest and the names Elias used for birds and trees. The eldest, Jonah, followed him on woodcutting trips, carrying small branches with pride. The middle child, Ellen, cleaned the cabin and spoke to Elias in quiet questions that slowly chipped away at his reserve. The youngest, Rose, laughed freely, as if she had never known fear at all. Her laughter echoed through the cabin, settling into corners that had long been empty. Mara cooked meals from what little they had, stretching simple ingredients into something that felt like abundance. She mended Elias's torn coats without being asked. At night, when the children slept, she and Elias sat by the fire in companionable silence. Sometimes she spoke of her husband, not with tears, but with gratitude. Sometimes Elias spoke of his past, carefully, like stepping on thin ice. He told her about the family he had once dreamed of, and how those dreams had faded into the forest after a sickness took his parents and left him alone. Winter arrived fierce and unrelenting. Snow buried the trails, and the world narrowed to the cabin, the trees, and the people inside. They survived storms together, rationed food together, and shared warmth when the fire burned low. One night, when the wind howled like a living thing, Rose woke screaming from a nightmare. Elias was the one she reached for, her small hands gripping his shirt until her breathing slowed. In that moment, something settled into place inside him, quiet and permanent. Spring came gently, melting the snow and revealing green life beneath. Mara spoke again of leaving. She felt she owed him her freedom, her honesty. Elias listened, then simply said she and the children were already home if they wanted to be. He did not speak of love or obligation, only of choice. Mara wept then, not from sadness but from relief. They stayed. Years passed. The cabin expanded, room by room. Laughter became as common as birdsong. The children grew strong, learning from both the forest and their mother's steady guidance. Elias became father, without ever realizing when the word first replaced his name. He taught them how to survive, yes, but also how to be kind, how to listen, how to stand still and understand the world around them. One quiet evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the woods gold, Elias sat on the porch watching his family move through the space they had created together. Mara caught his eye and smiled, a smile filled with shared history and unspoken promises. He realized then that the forest had not taken him into solitude, it had been preparing him. The lonely woodsman had not just taken in a widow and her 3 children. Without knowing it, without planning it, he had found the family he would belong to forever.